Corporate Cafecito, a podcast based on professional development, career growth, and respecting our cultural identity. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Corporate Cafecito. Yo soy Nayeli Suarez Gas. And today we have, I would say, not even just a local celebrity, but just someone who has been so influential. You know, one of the things we talk about in this podcast is that we have to have people that look like us and sound like us to provide that path, people who have done it before. And Ana Belaval is a local celebrity here in Chicago and also a global celebrity. If you think about it, she is an Emmy winner. She does a million things, and she is one of us. And so, Ana, bienvenida. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
So I was born and raised in Puerto Rico, and I came to Chicago at age 21 because it was the only place I could find a reporting job. And I found it with Univision Chicago, which back then was called Canal 66. And it was exactly what I wanted to do right out of college. So I got very lucky, but I came to a city where I didn't know anybody. I didn't know the political system here. I didn't know the streets, nothing. But it was my
intimidating.
Yeah. See, no, and I had told my mother that I studied at American University in Washington, D.C., and I had told my mother that I would never leave home, and I would never be away from home again, and that I would never be again in the cold weather. And mira lo que hice. I came to the coldest town. You know, it's ridiculous what I've done to myself. Yeah. My mother's like, pero niña. And I'm like, Mom, I want to follow my dreams. So I came here and I was 21 con un papelito that said the address. My parents brought me. We set up an apartment and I started covering the 1996 Democratic Convention.
Wow. That's a big
start. And I was 21. Yeah.
Wow. And you think about like when we see right now, even people getting out of college right now, it's so hard to find something in their field or, you know, to get into what they like. What was that like, especially in something that is so difficult to break through?
So I made some smart choices early on. And when I realized that I wanted to be a TV news reporter, I was 14 years old. I had done a project for I'm assuming it was freshman year or middle school, about a career that I would want to have. And I interviewed the news director of WAPA Televisión, WAPA in Puerto Rico. And my dad that summer, when I was 14 or 15, he said, you got to find yourself a job or I'm sending you to work with your Uncle Jose at the insurance company. And I'm like, nope.
Nope.
I'm going to go work in a newsroom. And I called Quique Cruz, who is one of the pioneers, news anchors and news reporters in Puerto Rico. He was the news director at Channel 4 then. And I said, can I be your intern? And he said, yeah, it's free. And I said, sure. So I interned there my summer of sophomore, junior year, senior year, and all through college every summer. And so I chose a university that had a strong broadcast journalism department and also focused on internships. And I interned at Univision in Washington, D.C. in that bureau. And I took college very seriously. I lived like an adult. I've always wanted to be an adult. So I lived like an adult on my parents' dime, right? I've been very blessed. So I was an excellent intern at Univision. My mentor, Lori Montenegro, is still my mentor. She's at Telemundo now, but Primer Impacto needed a freelancer at Washington, D.C., Maryland, Virginia. And Lori said, hey, why don't you try this girl? She said, stand there, let them see you on camera and let them hear you speak Spanish. And in my senior year in college, I got a gig as a freelancer for Primer Impacto.
Wow.
And I had
which was like, at that time, like the show, like everyone watched it. We watched everything, always top rated.
Yeah. So I had a good demo tape. In my industry, we don't use resumes. We use demo tapes, videos showing your work. So I had a decent demo tape. And I said, good, I'm going to go home and I'm going to be a news reporter in San Juan and it's going to be great. But WAPA didn't have any jobs available. And I had a professor who I did not particularly like, but she was our broadcast journalism 2 professor. And she said, you got to find what your it factor is or what your talent is. And if your only talent is that you are fluent in Spanish, then use it. And I was like, what is this woman talking about? I'm fluent in English. What is her problem?
Yeah. Why would she say that to me?
Why would she say that? Yeah. But then I realized I couldn't find a job in Puerto Rico. There were so many people from my class looking for the same jobs and finding out that they would pay very little. And I said, you know what? I'm going to call my mentor at Univision in DC and see if anyone's looking for somebody anywhere in the United States. And she said, Ana, they're looking for a reporter in Chicago. I'm going to send your tape to Berta Castañer, the news director. And they called me for an interview. And Lori said, go. You've never been in an interview. Everything with me was word of mouth. Yeah. And I came to the interview July 19th, 1996, and they offered me the job that evening.
Wow.
And my father had said,
you must have blown them away.
Oh, no. See, plus I was a U.S. citizen, which helped because the girl right before me had lied about her status.
Oh, no.
And she was about to be hired. And so her misfortune was my fortune, right? And so they said, screw it, this one's Puerto Rican, we'll polish it.
We'll take it. Yeah.
And they saw potential in me. They showed my videotape to some of their cameramen and they're like, what do you think? And they said, yeah, we can work with her. And my father had told me, you're not leaving this house unless they pay you $28,000. I don't know why he gave me that amount. He said, yo no te voy a pagar que estés fiestando en Chicago. Para eso te quedas aquí. And I didn't know what to ask. Okay. Nayeli, yo le decía, do you have health insurance? And they're like, yeah.
I need $28,000.
And exactly. And they offered me that or 30. I don't remember. And I called my dad, who was in a business trip with my mother in New York City. And I said, they offered me the job. They said they hung up and went to the bar to drink. Because they thought they lost me. They're like, that's it. She's gone.
Oh.
And then my mother, I went back to Puerto Rico and my mom said, Nana, you said you weren't going to leave. You weren't going to leave us. You weren't going to go back to cold weather. And I said, I have a dream. Right. And I'm not going to let my fear of being away from you guys or my or my disdain for cold weather to stop me. My mom said, okay, let's go. So they left their 21-year-old child at a city they did not know. And child, because in our culture, hasta que te case, you're still a child.
Yeah, de la casa a la iglesia.
And so they trusted me and my judgment. And that was the beginning of this wonderful career that I've had, that I have forged for myself, because there have been moments where I thought I was perfect for one thing and no one else but I thought that I was good for it. So, my master's degree was at Univision Chicago. And then my doctorate has been at WGN.
I love that because it's about developing and growing and continuing. And one of the things that I would love to hear more about is I hear you saying all these beautiful names, like
Lori and Berta.
Lori, Berta, all the people who pushed you forward. And I think it's really important. Like, to me, that's part of your network. And I love that even after this time, you're still connected to them and that you said, she's still my mentor. Because I think that a lot of times we think of mentorship as like, oh, you're going to help me do this. But it's almost
and
like.
And then I move on.
Yeah, but it's like de por vida.
De por vida. I had a serious journalistic career at Univision Chicago, and I was switching to Despierta America to be a feature reporter. So it was not what I trained in, but it was what was perfect for me and what my personality fit better. And my first boss here, Berta Castañer, has always said the camera doesn't lie. And you are at a perfect place. You're excellent at what you do, but you're even better at doing the other thing. And so she respected my choices. I mean, I'm dancing on a table in Despierta America, singing a birthday song, like doing crazy sketches. And these two women who trained me to be a serious reporter are helping me and applauding me. And, when I got the opportunity to do the crossover, I called both of them. I called my godmother in Florida, who's not in the business. And I said, what do you think? And so Giselle Blondet, who worked with me at Despierta America, encouraged me to do the crossover. So I have people from even my internship in high school, the anchor at WAPA, Selimar Adames, who's now at Las Noticias. I still DM her, and I'm like,
love that.
We're there to support each other. And so even if they're not mentoring, I have them in my life that if I ever need anything, like I went to do my one-woman show in Puerto Rico, and Selimar brought her kids and brought her friends and interviewed me for her newscast. So I have built a network of women and men who are still there for me. And I have never, thankfully, burned any bridges. I have left with my head held high and with everybody feeling like I was always truthful.
I think that's really important because I feel, and especially like you on TV, like, when you and I were talking the other day, I'm like, I feel like I know you. I feel like you're my friend. And I think that comes from that genuineness that you have to, one, like you can't project it if you don't have it. And so to be able to feel that related to you, and also to have cheerleaders, like your friends and mentors, they were there. Like when you said you were dancing or like singing the birthday song, they were probably like, isn't that what she was, was used to doing, but they didn't, like, they were still there showing up for you. What would you advise someone now who wants to be a news anchor or a feature reporter? Like, what are some things that they should look out for? Because it's changed so much.
Oh, and it's going to continue to change. I think, you know how TV killed radio and, DVDs killed cassettes. We've been living under the threat of the internet for a long time now. And where I work is an anomaly. WGM Morning News is an anomaly. We are number one in Chicago, and we were shocked because no one watches local news anymore.
We do.
Right. Yeah. But people watch WGN.
Yeah.
And, a lot of the model is moving back more towards platforms. So I encourage, but I still think it's important to know how to write. It's important to read about many things. And it's important to learn how to speak correctly and how to tell stories with images and project your voice. There is nothing that drives me crazy, even in podcasts, when people are talking like this.
I can't.
Journalists, like New York Times journalists who are 29 and have vocal fry. It drives me nuts. So I think 10 years ago, I wouldn't have discouraged them. Now I would warn them that it's still a very hard career. It is exciting. It is not glamorous, and it's getting even less glamorous as times go by. You're going to shoot your own stories. You're going to do your own makeup. You're going to brush your own hair, pay for your own clothing, record your own voice. And you're not going to have Christmas. You're not going to have there's no holidays and no vacations when you start. So you have to have a vocation. And I'm very proud of the interns that we've had that have listened to us and have said, okay, so if I have to start in the market 110, that's what I'm going to do. Val Warner, who used to be my coworker and is a dear friend, her oldest daughter studied this and is on her way to Florida to start in Fort Myers as a reporter, But like Val had to tell her, no one starts in Chicago. No one starts in New York. And so
you work your way up.
And I see that still in people and kids that are coming up in our ranks, but a lot of the times they're even more disillusioned than we have been, because we had the 90s, we had, the early 2000s, and people were watching us. They didn't have 1,000 challenges and platforms. So yeah.
Just how it's evolved, and like you said, the evolution of like the CD and the radio killed the, and I just think it will continue to evolve, right? That's the only thing that changes. And a lot of times, as I talk to people, I'm like, the jobs that exist now, a lot of them didn't exist even 5-10 years ago. If someone wants to work in journalism, but maybe not as a reporter, what are some other jobs that they could do? Like if you think about your newsroom or
in our newsroom, they can be news writers, they can be producers, they can be bookers, they can be assignment desk editors. Those are the ones that look for the news and assign them to the different reporters. They can be photographers in Chicago. They can be editors. The most important thing is I think my college education was key. I learned a lot in college, especially because I went to a university that had professors who had done this and could tell me how to tell a story and what happened in the trenches and so on. I think that as soon as you can get an internship or get experience or get in a newsroom and see how it works, I think that's what was great about being a WAPA at a young age, that I saw every spot. And so I saw that the producer had more power than the reporter. And the different people.
Yeah, the dynamic.
I'm a desk editor is the worst job you can have, because we all yell at you because you sent us to the wrong address, and we'll tell you we didn't think that was a story, and so we're really mean to assignment desk editors. So, not me, but a lot of people are. So, camera people can make you or break you, and so if you love shooting video, that's the position for you, editing, that kind of thing. So yeah, I think it takes a lot of people to put together a newscast.
We've talked about how you've had success. What are some of the walls you hit as you were, going throughout your career?
The walls I've hit have been, when I was at Univision, I was not Latina enough for them. I wasn't hot enough. I wasn't sexy enough. And I can say that with freedom now, because it is my story and they can corroborate it. I was excellent at what I did. I was constantly being flown in from New York to Miami to host. And when the host position came up, they told me I wasn't polished enough. But what they wanted me to change was my outfits, my skin color. They wanted me to put sunless tanner on, put hair extensions on. And I tried it all, and it was very hard. I hated it. It wasn't me. So that was an obstacle that I took as an opportunity after I tried changing for them. I took as an opportunity to see if I could do the crossover into English. And then I went to one agent who represented a lot of people at Univision and Telemundo, and he told me not to waste my time because I had an accent. And I was doing fine at Univision. And I left very deflated, but I said, you know what, if the accent is the issue, let me just take some accent reduction classes. And I took accent reduction classes in New York, and then went to a book signing of Giselle Blondet's book. She was one of the co-hosts of Despierta America, and her agent, who was the guy who discouraged me, saw me talking to people and having people react to me. And he said, I think we could do something with you. And he connected me to another agent. And I told them that I wanted to do the crossover, but only in New York, Chicago, or Florida. Because I, by then, had 6 years experience as a journalist. I knew this market.
Right.
The Chicago
you can
market
call your market now. Yeah.
And so he's the one that sent my Spanish tape to the news director at WGN. That news director didn't speak any Spanish, so he had to call the one woman who spoke fluent Spanish and ask her if I was reporting correctly. And she said yes. And so that's how I got the job. I think I do my segment that I do now really, really well. So I'm a little pigeonholed there. So sometimes I'm not considered for other things.
That's unfortunate because I love your segment. Like you help people find their voices and businesses be seen. And I think that that's one of the things like in our market, one of the things that differentiates Chicago from a lot of cities is we have the mom and pop, we have the local businesses, we have community, we have neighborhoods. And so I think the segments that you do highlight like the beauty that is Chicago.
Right. But sometimes when I say, hey, I'd like to do this other thing in the newscast, they're like, really? You do? Because I'm so good at what I do, which sometimes is hard when they find somebody that does it so well. It's easier to replace people that are cookie cutter and not replace somebody unique, right? So
I had a manager tell me one time, he said, you want to do a good job, not a great job.
And it's very frustrating.
Yeah.
I remember when I worked at Univision Chicago, we had a reporter who never made deadline, never. And my friend and I were anchoring the weekend news and we had and working dayside because we're working weekends night side, let us work dayside. But since that reporter would never make it to deadline, we got screwed and had to work nights. Because they're taught in managerial school, you go with your really good people. Right. But thankfully, I've always thought when I was at GN that the network would call me, some network, and in some capacity, and they never have. I've tried to pursue it. By the time I wanted to pursue it, I was doing so well in Chicago, and I'm so happy here that it was like, I'm not going to go 3 steps backwards to go 1 forward. And I've landed exactly where I need to be. I am extremely happy doing Around Town. I am extremely happy doing my stand-up comedy and everything that the lack of opportunities have helped me find other paths and other ways to express myself. So I feel very blessed, and I think that what life has taught me is that what I think I really, really want ends up not being it. And so God blessed me with the opportunities of going to Miami a lot to host Despierta America. And I realized I can't live in this town. I don't like it. I don't like this atmosphere. And then when I've anchored the 4 a.m. news here in Chicago, I'm like, I can't handle the schedule.
You're like, I'm too
and
tired.
I am I move a lot. And so I look like I'm fidgeting like I can't handle being stuck on that chair. And then I went to do The View. I went to audition for The View, and I bombed the audition because I am not combative. I'm not confrontational, and they wanted the typical they wanted a Rosie Perez. They wanted J-Lo, who
that's to come in and be that loud Latina, and you're just like,
and I'm not that way. Right. So it has taken them maybe 10 years or 15 to hire someone like Ana Navarro, who is educated, who has a bit of an accent, who has an edge, but it's an intellectual edge. It's not an edge that she's going to be the stereotype from movies. Right. So
right.
I think I was a little bit ahead of the time. So those have been the obstacles.
One, I think it's really cool that you were interviewed for The View. Like, that's really cool to see.
I'd like to forget it.
But the breadth of where your career can go. And so I'm going to use that as a segue to talk about your comedy. So, when we think of you, we do think like warm, genuine, personable, friendly. Tell me about your comedy.
I'm super funny. You forgot the funny.
No, I know you're funny, but when you think about someone who's in journalism, you don't think about them as funny.
No. So and it's been hard for my bosses to they'll be like, you guys are gonna do what? Because it's me and the sportscaster. We both do comedy. So I started doing stand-up comedy 15 years ago. My daughter, or 14, my daughter was about 1, and I had always wanted to do stand-up comedy. And I had asked a stand-up comedian from Chicago, Mike Toomey, if there was anywhere I could take lessons on how to write. But Chicago is a very improv-oriented town. Yeah. So there's Second City, which I had taken lessons there. And he's like, no, I can't think. Maybe you can call Patty Vasquez. But long story short, I got pregnant. Things changed. And when I came back from maternity leave, Mike said, listen, Pat McGann, who now travels with Sebastian Maniscalco, wants to do not a competition, but he wants to do a show with Chicago celebrities that have never done stand-up. It's going to be called the Chicago Stand-Up Project. It was on WTTW. And he's going to pair you guys with us. And you're going to write a 5-minute set, and we're going to go to Zanies to do it for 5 minutes. I brought him like 10 pages. And he's like, it's a 5-minute set. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah, like,
so
I'll talk really fast. Don't worry.
We reduced it. We tightened it. And I performed it. And the comedians that were there that night were like, you should pursue this. You're really good. And I loved it. There's nothing like your first time doing stand-up. Nothing. And long story short, I started at Zanies 14 years ago, and September 20th, 21 and 22, I'm going to be at Zanies in Rosemont doing 2 shows in English and 1 in Spanish as a headliner.
Oh my God, that's amazing. You've done so many crossovers.
Oh, yes. I'm the queen of the crossover and reinvention. Yeah.
You're like, lo voy a hacer aquí, and then I'll do it in English. I'm going to do serious journalism, and then I'm going to be a comedian. Like, I think that's beautiful range, but also I think, you talk about being pigeonholed a little bit, then you knock down another wall and say, okay, I'm going to go over here and try this.
And you only need one person to give you the chance. My husband has always said that. I needed one news director in English to pick me. I needed one club to say, go ahead and do stand-up. And, that's it.
And muchas felicidades. You are such a role model for us, both, as a Latina, but also as like a Chicago person.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think you've been here longer than you were in Puerto Rico. So you are officially a Chicagoan. But we look forward to seeing you continue to represent us, to show us the way, to break down more walls.
Thank you.
Because people like you definitely inspire our community. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, well, join us next time on Corporate Cafecito. And yo soy Nayeli Suárez Gas. Aquí los esperamos.